How do you deal with a lazy teenager? It comes up, doesn't it?
It does.
We're taking that on today. Teenagers get this rap all the time. My teenager is so lazy, right? Actually, I think they're pretty creative and efficient. They're not
getting what they want.
Expend
sometimes.
more energy than they have to, right? I mean, maybe we're just jealous of our teens.
That they stay in the now.
They get to live this life of leisure and luxury without too much output.
So what are we going to do with this teenager that is kind of viewed as lazy, but maybe just be normal?
And that's probably the first step. Mm-hmm. So acknowledge that this is probably part of a developmental stage that they're going through. It's pretty typical, pretty normal. You've got a great teenager. Now, I'll just assert that because I know that you've got issues and there are issues going on in your home or with your teen. It could always be worse, right? That's important to acknowledge because it puts you in a different frame of mind, and then you can approach your teenager much differently.
So one of the first things you're going to want to do when dealing with your teenager is remember that there are some things you control and some things you don't. And most conflict between parents and a teenager come because you're worried about the things in their life you can't control, and they're worried about the things in your life that they can't control. And so there's kind of a conflict, meaning maybe I'm irritated by the messy bedroom. Day after day, he's just so lazy, won't pick up. I'm irritated by the messy bedroom. Whereas the teenager might be irritated by the fact that you control the car keys and don't let them go anywhere. So
they can't get permission to hang out with their friends.
So they're upset about the permission which you control versus, So just get really clear about what you control.
That will save your sanity. Mm-hmm. If you're trying to control something that you don't, it will frustrate you and annoy them.
And here's one of the things that you'll see a lot with teenagers is the eye roll. You don't control whether their eyes roll in their heads or not. And so just get really clear about what you do control and what you don't control.
Now, Vicki, having established that thing about control, which is important to keep in your mind somewhere, let's also review very quickly the 3 stages of moral development. Do you remember stage 1 is selfish and self-centered. It's manipulative, it's demanding. Stage 2 is cooperative and compliant. Stage 3 is all about initiative and being responsible. Okay. So you can see if you put those 3 stages up next to each other, you're going to deal with your teenager depending on what stage they're in. It's about stage, not age.
Yeah, and that's so tricky because we think they're a teenager. They're going to be stage 3, of course, or at very least stage 2 at all times.
That has to do with your expectations. So check in with your expectation. If you expect them to be on stage 3 and they're over here on stage 1, you're going to feel some frustration, maybe anger and resentment.
So one of the things you want to do when dealing with your teenager is actually, we call it a top-down approach.
Yes.
So be aware of those stages and always start at the top. See if they're ready to meet you on a stage 3 level. And if they're not, then you very calmly move to stage 2. And if they're not ready at that point, you go ahead and go down to stage 1. Now, that's kind of a tricky thing. We read a book so many years ago called The Knight in Rusty Armor. Is that what it was? And one of my favorite statements from that is, when you learn to accept rather than expect, you'll have a lot less frustration, or something like that.
Those words are so similar, aren't they? Expect versus accept. And as we accept their stage, then we approach them at an appropriate level for their stage. So, Vicki, when you said the top-down approach, you want to start as high as you can and go as low as you have to.
Right. So you're not going to go up to this child and say, just assuming they're at stage 1 and start coming in with all these consequences and penalties and things like that.
Right. You'll invite them to meet you at a higher stage. And this has to do with communication first. I love to ask the question, will you cooperate with me on this?
Because you immediately know if they're at least in stage 2 if they say yes.
Right. If they completely refuse and they're defiant and oppositional about the whole thing, then you know they're on stage 1. And the good news is you don't need their input at stage 1. If they will cooperate with you, then you're going to go to stage 2 and you're going to use a whole different kind of consequence than you would. So in dealing with a lazy teenager, first discern which stage they're on. Is it 1, 2, or 3? And if you need a review of that, go to the video about teaching kids responsibility, where we give a good overview of those 3 stages. Or if you're already enrolled in the Parenting Power-Up program, we go into it in detail there. You can connect to that at parentingpowerup.com. And then you'll have good resources to refer back to. That's what we're talking about with those stages. Vicki, you knew I was going to go here.
Always.
Positivity. I am such an advocate of positivity. Not in the trite, fluffy way that motivational speakers talk about, just stay positive. I'm talking about choosing on purpose to take a positive approach. This has to do with your language. It has to do with what you're communicating to your child about respect and that you actually enjoy them. What difference have you seen that makes?
I just think it's really important to be aware of how much you do enjoy the child. And if you can't go there, that's probably a place for you to start working on a few things, of things you can enjoy about your child, so that you can fall back on that and remember that in the moments of challenge.
I tell you what, if a teenager feels that you like and enjoy them, they will respond to you very differently than if they think you are disappointed in them, or you think they're never good enough, or that they need to do something differently. Now, we could all do something differently.
Right.
All right. There's always room for improvement. What we're talking about here is taking an intentional position that you like and enjoy your teenager. You communicate that and you convey that to them in interacting with them. You're going to have a whole lot more influence that way. Now, Vicki, let's tie this back into the topic. Okay, what do you do with your lazy teenager?
Okay.
Consequences sometimes are necessary.
I could just say that usually you're thinking they're lazy because they're not doing something you expect them to do.
Yeah,
and they can get away without it, right? So that brings up our next concept of unfluffing the nest. So what does that mean?
Well, right. Was it an article or something we were reading about birds that when these little fledgling birds are getting big enough to start leaving the nest, but it's nice and comfortable in there, sometimes the mama bird will start plucking the fluff out of the nest and tossing it out, right? So now it's twigs and prickly stuff, so that it's not as comfortable to stay there. What might that mean with your teenager?
Yeah, so kind of think about what is it that you're perceiving as laziness, and if there's some action you want them to the child to take, the teenager to take, you might see, well, do they really even need to, or are they getting all their needs met without doing XYZ? And so just kind of start unfluffing the nest.
I just thought of an example for one of my clients who was frustrated that their teenage son was simply in his room for hours on end, maybe 6, 7, 8 hours a day playing video games online. So that's pretty comfortable, right? For a 17, 18-year-old kid to be, in this comfortable room.
Not being bothered by anybody.
Internet access and the computer. And so unfluffing the nest for this particular parent meant turning off the internet access during certain hours.
So there you unfluffed the nest.
Pluck some of that fluff out of there. Okay, disclaimer. Teens don't particularly like it when you set limits with them, when you start unfluffing the nest.
Remember, they're trying to gain autonomy. And so they want to be in total control of their life. And they see that you still have some controls.
Over things that matter to them.
Yeah.
Right? So they're going to give you a very strong pushback.
Yeah.
From time to time. And sometimes it will be noisy, and sometimes it will be disrespectful, and sometimes it will be demanding that you can't take that internet away from me. Yeah. Well, can you or can't you? See, you don't need to argue with them if you've got control over that. So don't engage in the argument.
Right, and whatever consequence that you have set up, remember, you need to be able to control that consequence 100%. Stay firm with it, and in doing so, expect the storm. Then you're not thrown off or surprised when it comes.
A little word about storms, okay? We just visited northern Florida not too long ago. They get some crazy storms down there. All you folks in northern Florida, wow, we understand now, even though it wasn't a hurricane, pretty heavy storms that can happen. When you see a storm coming, what do? You batten down the hatches, right?
Right. You don't stand there and
you
go
down.
away, storm.
You don't shake your fist at the heavens, right? Don't start with me. So expect the storm, batten down the hatches a little bit, prepare yourself to weather the storm because it's probably going to happen. As you stay calm and positive, the storm will pass eventually.
It will.
Storms always do, right? That storm's going to pass. And then after the storm, you can have whatever appropriate processing that you need to with your teenager. Great point, Vicki. Expect the storm, prepare for it, and weather the storm.
We hope you found some of these tips very helpful.
Hopefully.
If you're looking for more tips in your parenting, go to parentingpowerup.com. We've collaborated to come up with some great content for you to help you feel more empowered as a parent.
We'll help you do your job. We got your back.
Standing in the street alone.